He's in the Brill building, and he takes under his wing a couple of songwriters, Richard Alder and Jerry Ross. And they had had a few hits on the hit parade back when radio was pre-rock. And one of the things that they had written the song Rags to Riches, which was recorded by Tony Bennett, which was a big hit and one of Tony's first breakout songs. So they were noticed by Lesser, and Lesser recommended the Adler and Ross songwriting team to Harold Prince and company that were forming and putting together the Pajama Game. And before they'd hire him, they had to write some spec songs. They had read the book, found a couple of places where they might test some songs and see if they passed muster with the producers. So the two songs that they wrote on spec were Racing with the Clock, which is the second number in the Pajama Game that takes place in the factory. It's busy, it's exciting, there's a lot of counterpoint to it, and it takes you into what it's like to work in a pajama factory. Then the other thing that they wrote was the big hit song of the show, Steam Heat. You know, I got steam heat, and on the basis of those two numbers, they were hired to do the whole score. But there's a controversy that I have not been able to resolve because there are so many different conflicting sources. They say that Frank Lesser actually contributed a couple of songs to the Pajama Game uncredited. And the first song that Sid sings in the show is called A New Town is a Blue Town, which really has a bluesy feel to it that's different than any other part of the score. And it really recalls in Lesser's score for Guys and Dolls, My Time of Day is the Dark Time. It's got that bluesy and really subtle melodic line. So there are people that claim that he wrote that song. And there are people that claim that there's a duet later on in the show called There Once Was a Man, which has a country western flair that hits on Frank Lesser's kind of way to do novelty songs, kind of like Bushel and a Peck in Guys and Dolls. So Wikipedia says that he contributed. I went to a book called The Complete Lyrics of Frank Lesser, and there's no mention in his work that he actually did anything on the Pajama Game. So it's a debate. It's neither here nor there. It's like these fledgling songwriters got their first crack at writing a Broadway musical, and they did a superb job with a lot of different colors and rhythms and feelings in the musical numbers. So it comes time to assemble more of the team, and they wanted Jerome Robbins to choreograph. Now, Jerry, if we can call him that, I've read about all of these people, and I feel like I can be on a familiar basis with them. And he had his sights on directing and backing away from choreography. So he recommended Bob Fosse to choreograph the musical numbers. but he would have to get exchange for Robbins being credited as a co-director. So we got his first director credit. And the interesting thing is, later that year, he conceived, choreographed, and directed the Mary Martin version of Peter Pan. So that was one of his big leaps before he got to West Side Story in '57. Fosse was known primarily as a dancer. He had danced in a lot of different MGM musicals, including having a featured part in their film version of Kiss Me Kate. He was recognizable, and he was just dying to choreograph. So with the contract settled with Robbins getting co-director credit, Fosse came in to choreograph the show. Though, there were times that Fosse didn't know how to do certain numbers, so it was good that Jerome Robbins was there to help out. One of the big examples was, one of my favorite songs in the show is called I'm Not at All in Love. It is ironic and soaring and fun, and basically our heroine is denying the fact that she has any attraction for our leading man. And Fosse didn't know how to deal with emotions like that in a staging. So Jerome Robbins stepped in, and it's interesting the first time that they ran through the show, because Fosse didn't know what to do with it. It hadn't been staged. So in about 40 minutes, Robbins was able to get it together and stage it, and so they could go on with the run through. Well, part of putting together a team to write, direct, choreograph, you have to raise money to do it, because they're not going to do it for free. So that's primarily what producers like Harold Prince and Robert Griffith did. They raised the money so they could put on the Pajama Game. And the original production was budgeted at $250,000. Considering the flop that Andrew Lloyd Webber had this season called Bad Cinderella, which foreshadowed what kind of show it was. That cost $9 million. Wow. Again, a lot of labor costs go up, theater rentals go up, but just imagine having $250,000 back in 1954 and being able to put together these people primarily working for the first time together. So what Prince and Griffith would do is they would bring in people that might invest money, and they'd have stagings or previews in living rooms, pass out booze, maybe get them drunk, so they thought, oh, that was a great song, I can't wait to see this show. Well, again, another name that I'm glad to see that the young people that we have in the show that don't get my references. Does anybody know or remember Edie Adams? She had been in Wonderful Town, which was the show that Abbott had directed before. And so she became friend of Pajama Game, and she offered her living room so they would go ahead and have their auditions and come out with money towards the production.